Bernie Fratto thinks the Big Ten has made a mistake and should be playing football. Mr. Fratto, I can't disagree more. I'd love to hear your argument. Lay it out.
Well, let's start with some chronology. Mark Schlissel, the president of the University of Michigan, who's become the patriarch of the conference, and I understand he's got a background in bioscience with the specialty in viruses. Well, he's been backpedaling since the jump. Remember back in May, he said there would be no fans in games, and 4 months before there were any games to be played. Then on July 9th, he said, we're only going to play conference games. And then last week, he made what I consider to be, I had this vote sort of, but a unilateral decision to cancel the season, invoking the convenient buzzword, player safety. Oh, but there's only one problem. The very people he was worried about being sued by, he doesn't give them a seat at the table. That means the parents who are confused and the players who are angry, they didn't give these people a voice. And then they start to talk about things like spring, football and so on and so forth. And you know what? The biggest hypocrisy to me is the Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren. Did you know, Rob, that his son plays in the SEC for Mississippi State? What's up with that? Now, we've got a lot of layers to this argument, and I want to give you time to rebut. But not only do I think the timing of the decision was dubious, they didn't need to make it this quickly. I think the decision overall will prove in the future to be one that they regret.
I don't think they're going to regret it at all, Bernie. Look at the world we're living in. I think what happens is people get caught up on their own little thing. They've canceled so many things and altered so many people's lives by this coronavirus because people are taking the better to be safe than sorry. And all you guys who are out there pushing for college football to play when everything else is shut down, and you can't equate it to the pros. Those are professional adult males, athletes who are getting paid millions of dollars, and they know the risks that are involved. You cannot send kids out there when the NCAA has canceled everything else. It doesn't make sense. The only reason, Bernie, that you guys are interested in college football at this level is because it's the mover and shaker. It's the one that moves the needle at Las Vegas and the money. It's the one that pays the networks the networks pay all the money. That's the only reason why it's even up for debate, is because of the money that's going to be lost. If it was the same and it was really amateur sports, this wouldn't even be a debate. And the whole notion that all of a sudden the kids have to make a decision. We know kids want to go back in the game with a concussion or a bad leg.
Not a good comparison.
Or a bad no, they do. And the doctors have to stop them. The teams have to grab their helmets from them and hide them, Bernie, because the kids want to play. I get that kids want to play. Adults have to be the ones to keep them from themselves sometimes. And in this case, it's a selfish reason that the guys who want to play, instead of looking at the big picture, who's going to be holding the bag 5-10 years down the road, or when Billy contracts something and takes it home and grandma or granddad dies, who's going to be holding that bag? And the presidents of the universities, they have to make sure that they protect and not be liable for what could happen and what could come back. Here's the other part, all the people. Well, just make the kids sign a waiver. If you have to sign a waiver, it tells you that they can't protect you. It tells you that there's a high risk and they don't want to be liable. I wouldn't sign a waiver. I wouldn't go on a ride that made me sign a waiver. I wouldn't do anything where I have to sign a waiver from that standpoint of putting myself in jeopardy. I think the Big Ten's more responsible. The SEC is only about money. They don't care really about the kids. I don't buy it. I think it's bogus. I think that the Big Ten did a responsible thing by canceling the college football season.
All right, first of all, I didn't compare them to the pros, so throw out your straw man argument. And the opt-out clause was working, so players that don't want to play don't have to. And the concussion thing is another straw man argument because you're acting like everybody's got COVID, so they can't go back in the game. If you got a concussion, you can't go back in the game. If you got COVID, you can't get on the field. That's why if they test and test and test and they go on the field, everything should be fine. They're proving it. Now, look, when did the medical community become this monolith? Rob, doctors don't agree. You could take, I'm going to give you an example. Rob Parker could be the quarterback for Southern Connecticut State, and you could sustain a rotator cuff injury, and they would treat it. Rob Parker could be a tight end for Southern Connecticut State, and you could sustain the same injury, and they would treat it differently based on the position you play in the muscle groupings. So same athlete, same person, same malady, treated differently. The medical profession is all over the place on this. Now, you win it, and by the way, you're wrong about the Vegas angle, too, because that handle will be largely made up when the NFL starts playing on Saturdays. And let's not forget, there's still 76 schools and 311 games yet to be played, and I think they're going to pull this off. Now, let's go back to something that really sticks in my craw. The schools, I believe, are far more worried about liability and using this hypocrisy about player safety. I don't buy it. I think you've got a situation, you've still got students and players still on campus. They're still going to go to class. They're still going to be working out. The players will still be engaged in their daily regimen. They're going to be doing everything except stepping on the field on Saturday afternoon. So what exactly did this accomplish, Rob? Is there something on that football field that causes COVID after everybody's already been tested and has to be tested negative before they can step on the field and play a game?
Yeah, but Bernie, what you're not thinking about is once the kids, the other students are there on campus, that all changes.
Don't act as if there won't be.
Don't act as if there won't be mingling. And also, this is from the own NCAA chief medical officer. When you hire somebody, you buy into their opinion. And he said this on CNN on Saturday night. Quote, right now, if testing in the U.S. stays the way it is, there's no way to go forward with sports. The pathway to play sports is so exceedingly narrow right now. Everything would have to line up perfectly. End quote. That's why. You're right. You could always get a doctor and somebody to give you the opinion that you want to hear. Just like in a court of law, when you bring in expert witnesses who can tell you exactly what the defense wants or the prosecution. So I get that point. I'm saying to you, Bernie Fratto, if this thing were to blow up, and something would have happened, where would the kids be left afterwards? Who's going to pick up the bill? Did all the football coaches put their money in a trust and say, hey, you know what? If something goes bad 10, 12 years from now, there'll be a trust to take care of these kids? No. What they want the kids to do is to make money for them. That's the only reason they want football. It's because they want to make money.
Oh, gee, what a concept. They did something to make money. Rob, did you just hear a word I said? Students are going to be on campus. Players are going to be on campus. And yes, you're right. They're most likely going to mingle. Players are still going to be engaged in their regimen. They're going to be working out. All you've done is take away what they wanted to be most. Why? Otherwise,
Bernie, when you play football, are you on top of each other? Is there sweat and saliva possibly being exchanged? I'm just asking you. Is there a chance of that? It's not like baseball is the ultimate social distance.
Rob, listen to me. If you test negative before you get on the field, then what does it matter if they're all testing negative?
But all the tests aren't.
What did they accomplish by returning to campus, players and students alike, mingling, engaging with each other, walking past each other,
Bernie,
whatever the case, but they're not playing on Saturday, and they've already tested negative, or they can't get on the field. What exactly did you accomplish by this Fakakta model here? They're all going to be.
But I'm asking you, ask yourself this. They just want to stop football just for the hell of it? They stopped the NCAA basketball
Rob, they're worried
conferences?
about liability.
No, I'm asking it. For what? They stopped it for what reason?
Third time, liability. You don't act like it's not about liability. And I'm not implying that they don't care about the students. They do. And they care about the players more than people realize. They're very well taken care of. I played baseball in college. They actually do a pretty good job. A coach is supposed to be a surrogate father and a coach, and for the most part they are. And then all of a sudden last week you get this word myocarditis. I'm not poo-pooing this, Rob. This is serious business. That's why if you don't want to play, you opt out. But what if I told you, Rob, that there were 3.1 million cases of myocarditis diagnosed in 2017, 3 years before COVID. And all of a sudden, all we hear about is, and by the way, did you know you can get it from a bacterial infection or the common cold or mononucleosis? Gee, Michigan's quarterback, Shane Morris, had mononucleosis in 2012. He's still with us. I don't know if he's got myocarditis. They're making it up as they go along. That's what bothers me.
Why are they making it up, Bernie? I want you to give me what's the reasoning? Tell
Liability.
me, who's why? I'm telling you,
okay,
why
don't want to
doctors are making it up. The whole notion that this is some made up, concocted thing because somehow they don't want to play football.
Don't get twisted.
This isn't really happening. Nobody's really dying. Vegas didn't close
that
down.
This isn't a real thing.
I haven't been to a restaurant in 5 months. None of this is real. They just want to stop our Saturday football. Is that what this is?
Rob, do you hear bells? You're getting schooled. You keep switching the argument on me. No one is saying this is not a real malady that can cause serious illness and in extreme cases death, although not so often among college students. So it comes down to risk.
But they could deliver it to other people around them. They could deliver it to
do that off the football field. So what did they accomplish? Send everybody home. No one should be there then if that's the problem. And I'm going to tell you right now, Rob, if you turn this over to the lawyers, this is really going to get crazy. God forbid, your worst case scenario happens and someone contracts this worst case scenario. I pray that this doesn't happen. It ends up in court. Here's the bigger problem. You know how difficult the burden of proof is going to be that the kid actually contracted it on the football field? Perhaps he contracted it because he went to a party he shouldn't have gone to. This is going to open up a can of worms. You know what we're going to find out, Rob, in about 90 days? Assuming the 3 conferences still play, again, by the way, only 54 total schools have opted out of the Division I teams, of the FBS teams. There's still 76 that are going to try to play. We'll see what happens. I know 3 months ago, there were people pontificating about, we're never going to have sports, we're done for 2020, forget the bubble, it's not going to work, blah, blah, blah. It's working fine. Let's give this a chance to work, and there might be new medical advances. But here's where I'm really going with this, Rob, because in 90 days, we'll talk to each other. Fast forward to November, and it's either going to work or it's not. And if it works, and everything goes off fine, the Big Ten's going to have egg all over their face.
And if it doesn't work, what will you say? You'll say what?
I will have to say I was wrong. Okay, define doesn't work. Define what it means.
I don't know that they have to pull out because they have to pull out because a team gets infected or something.
37 they're already going through that process right now and vetting everybody. Clemson had 37 players test positive 4 weeks ago. Why haven't we heard anything about it? Because none of them had symptoms and everybody's fine. And they're treating this medically far better than they were back in March. Let's go back to the original argument. Did the Big Ten really make the correct decision for all involved when they don't even allow the very people that they're the most worried about, parents and kids, to have a seat at the table and at least discuss
They don't
this?
have a seat at the table for anything, Bernie.
Well,
that's not how it works. Since when? They've never had one. The NCAA runs and makes the rules. So why all of a sudden this whole notion that they have to have a seat at the table? When they pull a scholarship, there's no seat at the table. When they determine whether someone's eligible or whether they're going to play or not, a start, there's no seat at the table. This is the way the NCAA has always run it.